Hello, hello. Welcome back to Life After Plus One. I'm Leanne, your podcast host and your single parent mentor and coach. And today I've got an episode of a different kind, and it's one where the tables were turned on me. And I was being interviewed about my journey as a single parent and talking about some of the highs, the lows, the challenges, and some of the fun parts about being a single parent. So in today's episode, I was interviewed by the lovely Rossanna from Forgive and Thrive. Now, she's based over in the UK, and her podcast is all about that, forgiving and thriving, and just learning to get unstuck out of those sticky situations that you can end up getting caught up in life, and just learning to live a more fulfilling life. So today she's chatting to me about being a single parent and some of the highs and lows. So sit back and I hope you enjoy our little chat on single parenting. Welcome to the Life After Plus One podcast, where we turn life's lemons into delightful lemonade. Get ready for inspiring stories, uplifting conversations, and all the tips and tricks to rock your single parent journey with style. I'm your host, Leanne, and it's time to embrace the adventure of Life After Plus One. So let's dive in.
Hi, Leanne. Welcome to the Forgive and Try show. Thank you so much for
Hello.
us with that.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. Well, it's good morning here, sorry, but thank you for having me.
I know. Thank you very much actually for the early start because you
Yes.
are renowned. So it's about 5:30 in the morning. So I really appreciate this.
Yes. No, that's okay.
Absolutely. I suppose it's one of the perks of being a single parent when you need to juggle a lot of things, right? But before, so I'm very excited to have you on the show and to talk about this topic. A lot of people are affected.
Yep.
I mentioned mothers and some of stats about mothers, but it affects both mothers and fathers.
Yep.
So it's very important to discuss about this topic. But before we go into that, I really would like to know a little bit more about you and your experience and how you found yourself as a single parent.
I've been single parenting for probably about 10 years now. I left my daughter's father just after her 10th birthday, which was a very ugly, toxic breakup. And the breakup process has been very toxic ever since. I didn't have family around where I was. My mum lives an hour and a half away from me. When I broke up with him, I lost a lot of really good friends. They somehow took his side, believed his version of the story, and that was the time I needed my friends, and I had nobody. Back then, Facebook groups and all these support groups that you see on Facebook weren't as popular. I mean, there's heaps there now. There are Facebook groups for everything. But back then, there wasn't as much people that I could reach out to when I was just alone. I had nobody. And there was nobody that I could kind of fall back on that really understood my story. And because my daughter was so young, I was still attending a mother's group, and all the mums in that group were obviously partnered up and married and with their husbands. And it got to a point where I decided to pull back from that because they were all complaining about their husbands and, oh, he doesn't do this and he doesn't that. And in my head, I'm thinking, well, you've got a husband. Let's be a little bit happy. And here I am doing it on my own. And that just made me feel a little bit out of place. So I kind of pulled away from that, and I just felt very alone. And I've done coaching and counseling work. And I've kind of, ever since then, when I had no one, I'm like, you know what? I want to be able to support people that have gone through this and don't have anyone. And I've just had so much feedback saying how authentic it is. It's not just something that you read in a book that someone's just studied. This is my life experience as well. I've also studied it and I've lived it. And it's been a rough journey, but it's also been a fun one. There are a lot of positives about single parenting, which a lot of people don't think. A lot of people are scared and they think, oh, you've got to pay for everything. You've got to do all this. And you do have to work twice as hard sometimes just to make ends meet. But it does have its positives. And that's what I've learned along the way. And that's why I'm here now to help people and empower them on their single parent journey and realize it's not just a negative experience. Let's reframe it to be a fun one, an enjoyable one, and an empowering one where you can live your life on your terms.
Absolutely. You mentioned a couple of things here, and you're talking about the fear that normally accompanies single parenthood. So what would you say are the challenges that makes that experience scary? The financial that you mentioned is probably one of them, but sometimes, even parents or single parents that could afford financial support their children, they are still scary, and perhaps they stay in very toxic relationships just for the sake of it. So
and that's quite common.
yes, but I would argue that learning about the challenges and understanding what the challenges are is the first step, right? You become aware of what is on the other side and plan for them. You can account for them.
I think people are just scared of the unknown. They don't know what it is. They're used to having someone there, used to having someone to fall back on. And you see people a lot, like you said, even if they are financially stable, they're scared of doing it because they're scared of what, how it's going to affect the kids. And that's a big one. I can't leave my husband or my wife because we've got kids. You see that so often. It's just like single parenting doesn't impact your kids. It doesn't have a negative effect on them. What has a negative effect on the kids is when the breakup is toxic and the relationship between the co-parents is toxic. That has a negative impact on the kids. But when you can break up and manage to get some sort of civil or amicable arrangement, then there's no issue on the kids. And you see that often, I can't leave them, the kids are going to get affected. It's not, the kids are great. The kids have 2 homes, 2 families, 2 Christmases. It's not a negative thing. And like I said, it's the fear of the unknown. People just get comfortable in their routine, comfortable in their lifestyle, and the fear of how am I going to afford to live on my own, pay for a house. Maybe they might have to buy a house again. How are they going to do that as a single parent? There is a lot to it, and it is quite scary. And just with the way the financial market is at the moment, people are, I can't take that risk. How am I going to afford to live and provide for my kids all on my own? And it is hard, but it's possible.
And what would you say are the misconceptions about it? Because you mentioned something, it can be fun. And when people think about single parenthood, perhaps they don't think as a fun experience.
No, they think of that negative image that's portrayed in movies, or like, that mum that just sits at home and drinks and smokes and, just that lazy mum that doesn't work. That's not what single parenting is. There may be a small portion of people out there that do that, but that's not the majority. And there is a very ugly stigma on single parenting, and I don't want to put dads out of the picture here, but it does sit more with single mums. There is, and I see a lot on Facebook groups, single mum memes and making fun of single mums. It's just, and the sad thing is I see a lot of women jump on board these comments, like making fun of them. I'm like, that's not very supportive, and that's not what it's about. It takes a lot of guts to walk away from a toxic relationship, and it doesn't make us less than because we're on our own. If not, it makes us more stronger and confident because we had the guts to do it. We're not living in a miserable life, in a miserable relationship. So the stigma does play a huge part. And I do feel sometimes that when I go to places and there's all couples and friends with their husbands, that I do sometimes feel a bit, I don't know, I sometimes get the impression that the husbands don't want to talk to me because maybe they think, oh, she's single, she might want to hit on me, which is never the case. I don't go out with friends to hit on their husbands. It's just, I don't have a partner with me, but it doesn't mean I'm going to hit on you. And I sometimes feel that they are avoidant of me, thinking maybe my wife might think that I'm talking to her because she's single. And I do feel very different when I'm around married couples. And that's why I do tend to find my people that have single mums or understand my situation and are supportive and not judgy of it.
There are a few things here. The stigma you mentioned, the people understanding and people not understanding. I would like to go one step backward, however, and still consider the situation, the decision. For example, the balance, prioritizing and balancing what are the demands of you as an individual. For example, your work, your your friends and family, and everything that comes with your life experience.
That.
How do you prioritize and balance?
Well, for me, it kind of worked out for me in a way that, well, when I left my daughter's father, I was on an extended maternity leave, so I wasn't working at the time. That in itself was a little bit scary. But in our country, where we are in Australia, we're very lucky. We have a lot of support for single parents, but from the government who are on their own, and we do have government benefits that do help us get by, which is great. We're very lucky here. Not many countries do have that. So that helped me kind of get off my feet a little bit. But I started a business. I'd always wanted to start my own business when I was with my daughter's father, and he kind of mocked it a little bit. He made fun of it. He said, why would you ever want to do that? Nobody's going to want to, because I started a party business, a party high business, and doing party styling. And he made fun of it. No one's going to want to do that. And part of the reason why I started that business was, one, because that's always been my background. I've always worked in events and hospitality. And two, I've always wanted to have a job that I can work around my daughter. When I was a mum, I wanted to be able to prioritize my kids. And it's just one now, but that was always my plan. So when I left him and I wasn't working, I thought, great, this is my time to start a business. And that's what I did. I had zero financial backing. I had nothing behind me besides the small money that I was getting from the government to help me get by. And all I did was I started with a Facebook page, and then I just started promoting it there. And then when I got money from that, I started putting it back in to build the business. And so that's why I've always prioritized my daughter. I've never wanted to get a full-time job, even though I've thought about it many times for the money. For me, she's my everything, and she's always taken priority. So I've always wanted a job that I can work around her. And still now she's 10 years old, and I can still do school pickup and school drop off every day. And it does get hard financially. Like I just said, sometimes I'm like, just maybe I should go get a full-time job. But, I've discussed that with her sometimes, and I've said, would you like me to have more money so we can do more things and not be there at school pickup and your school activities? Or I can maybe have a little bit less money and be there for all these other activities. And so I think that time with her is more important. And so I've always just prioritized it that way, and everything else is just kind of fit in around it. And it hasn't been easy. It does get tough. Yeah, I don't think spending that time with your child when they're young is nothing you can ever regret.
Absolutely. It's very, very important. One word that comes to my mind, and that's empowerment. What does empowerment mean to you as a single parent?
Empowerment to me is owning your situation and doing something better with it. Stepping up and not just being miserable. Oh, I'm a single parent. I can't do this because I don't have enough money, or I can't do this because I don't have enough time. You got to get out of that negative bubble and find the positive in it and empower yourself, find something better. And this is something I promote on my podcast a lot. This is your time to live your life your way. You don't have an ex-partner or someone in your ear saying, like I did with my ex, trying to tell me that my business idea was never a good idea. This is your time to do it your way. Go study, go learn a language, go start a new hobby. You don't have anyone. You can sit at home at night time when your kids are asleep and do some work and start a business or start a course or do something. That's empowering. Doing something better where your kids can look at you and go, wow, look at mum go, or look at dad go. And, when you've come from nothing and you've built yourself up to something and you've made the most of your single parent journey, that's empowering.
Is running the situation rather than having the situation running you.
Exactly. Yeah.
I love that. Absolutely love that. And what about resilience? Because you have shown a lot of resilience as well. You have come through a lot of difficult situations.
Yeah.
So how is resilience playing your life as a single parent?
Well, you've got to learn to adapt. You've got to learn to adapt. And I think for me, most of it was just all a non-negotiable. For me, I had to get up and make something with my life because, like I said, I wasn't working. I got nothing from that breakup. I didn't fight for anything. I didn't have the energy to fight and do any kind of settlements. I just I had a suitcase of clothes and my daughter, and I left. So for me, it was a non-negotiable. I had to make it work. So I had to struggle or hustle every day to build that business and adapt and deal with all these things that were thrown at me in the process, and struggle with not paying bills and not being able to make ends meet, and walk around the supermarket with a calculator to see if I can afford to buy things and put things back on the shelf because it doesn't equal how much I've got in my bank account, but you've just got to make it work. And you do. But again, it all comes down to being in that right mind frame. And it's very hard to get into that negative mindset thinking when you don't have money and you can't do the things that you want to do, and you don't have someone at night time just help you clean up after dinner, and you just want to relax because you've had a big day. Honey, can you go do the dishes? No, you're on your own. You can't do that. So you've just got to learn to make do and just find the positives in the situation.
And what strategies would you use to leave that victimhood sort of mentality? What advice would you give to all the single parents listening?
See, I'm not a fan of the victimhood mentality. It drives me insane. For me, when people play the poor me card, you've got to get out of that. You've got to get out of that mindset. You've got to, because saying poor me, or I can't, it's just going to make your life harder. You've got to look at it from the perspective of, okay, what can I do to make this situation better? What can I do differently? And if it's a matter of just finding a little side hustle that you can start at home, but you can't focus on being in a negative mind frame. And it's not just about singlehood, it's about anything. If you just sit there and focus on being negative about a situation, it's not going to get any better. And it's just like with anything in life, with a job, if you want to go up in status in your career, then you put in the effort, you study, or you do what you got to do. And it's the same with anything. With single parenting, you want to improve your situation, you do what you can, whether it is study or start a job, get another job, or do whatever, rely on family and friends to help out with babysitting or whatever, so you can do something more. But being in a negative mind frame is not going to give you a positive outcome. It's about finding the positives in the situation.
Absolutely, love that.
Yeah.
One of the issues that many single parents need to face is the co-parenting, is the dynamics with a partner, ex-partner. How can one navigate conflicts, for example, with the co-parent while prioritizing the well-being of the child?
Yeah, and that's been a big issue for me. My co-parenting journey hasn't been easy. It's been very challenging. He's a very narcissistic character, and he's never been one to take accountability. He's never been one to apologize. And he's very much the victimhood kind of person. It's been quite challenging. But you learn you pick your battles. You pick your battles. I don't feed into anything that's not related. If I get a message or he asks me questions or he starts nitpicking about things that's not related or things that just he doesn't even need to know about, then I don't even acknowledge it. I no longer get triggered or fazed by any smart-ass comments or anything that he says. Like he used to, if I was dating someone, he'd give his feedback on that and tell me what he thought. And I've learned to keep the communication solely about my daughter. And that has just massively made a difference in my peace of mind and in my parenting. Because if you engage in every form of communication with your ex, it's going to send you insane. You just need to focus on what's relevant. And the only reason why you're in contact with this person is for the child that you share together. So that's the only reason why you need to be in contact. All you need to focus on is maybe pick up and drop off times and the co-parenting arrangement and anything that's related to the child or the kids, and that's it. Because if you keep focusing on maybe your ex is saying nasty stuff to you or mocking you or saying something, and if you're feeding into it, they're going to keep going. You've just got to learn to not let it faze you and just let it go over your head. Just ignore it. And I've even gone through a period where I used to just block his number in between visits, just so I didn't get any texts or calls that were going to put me in a not good headspace. So after she'd come back from her dad's for the weekend, I'd block his number. And then when she was due to go back there again, I'd unblock it because I know he'd message or something. So just planning the pick up and drop off, I'd unblock it then, just so I know there was no other text that would put me in a not good headspace. So that worked for me. But now I don't really get any of that interaction because he knows I don't respond and I don't feed into it. So that's the best thing when co-parenting, and it does get challenging and it does get ugly. Don't engage in contact that's not relatable to the kids. You're only in contact with them for the child, and that's what it needs to be focused on.
Absolutely. But sometimes, even when the communication is about kids, there might be more reasons beyond pick up and drop off, right?
Yep.
For example, the two parents might have different opinion on how to move forward with the education of the child. So
Yep.
how can you establish an effective communication where there is a disagreement effectively on how to help this child becoming a little adult?
The biggest thing is to try and make sure the decision is based on the child, not based on the parent's ego. Because sometimes you get people, parents saying, oh, I think they should do this, or I think they should do this. But is it what the child wants, or is it what's best for the child? When you're co-parenting, you've got to remain child-centered and keep that attention and that focus on what's best for the kid. Don't get nitpicky because your feelings are hurt because they left you maybe 12, 18 months ago. You've got to let that go. You've got to let your emotions go. Take any personal feelings out of it and just make it about the kids, really, and make sure that any decisions that are made with their best interests as top priority.
Talking about single parenthood when that is a choice. So very often single parenthood comes out of two parents splitting up and having this shared responsibility. But other times it comes out of a choice. Someone that wants to be a parent, perhaps they don't have a partner and they want to have that experience, whether it's through IVF, for example, adoption, foster care. There are different ways, and depending on the country, different legal concerns, obviously. What would you tell any person who is contemplating that to go ahead or to reflect on? What advice would you tell them?
I would honestly say anything is possible. If it's something you want to do, you find a way to make it work. And one of the biggest things, and again, this kind of relates a little bit to what we discussed earlier when I said, people are scared of being a single parent because they're scared of what it's going to be like on their own. And I wouldn't say I've ever been scared as a single parent. I have been challenged. I have found it extremely hard, and I've found myself in a dark hole many times. Like, how am I going to get out of this? But it's always possible to make it work. And especially if you've got a good support network, if you've got family around, if you've got friends around. And it's not so much relying on them to do babysitting or school runs when they grow up. It's more so for the emotional support. Having people there for the emotional support is just as valuable as having people that can come in and help you do things. Because every now and then you just need to click off from doing parenting and constant rat race kind of stuff. So having people around you that you can just sit down with and talk with about adult things is priceless. And wanting to be a parent on your own without having another partner is 100% possible. It's 100% possible. I would think it's probably easier than becoming a single parent after breaking up from a relationship, because in that regard, it's planned. It's planned. You're probably going in that situation knowing what finances you've got, where you're living, what you're doing. But when you become a single parent, it's a complete opposite. You don't. Your finances have all, muddled up. You've now got to work out settlements with your ex and whatever. You may even end up left with nothing and working out where you're going to live. But when you're doing it on your own and you may be going down the path of IVF, you know all that. You know where you're living. You know what you're doing for work. You know what your finances are like. So in my opinion, I think it's probably much easier than becoming a single parent because you've got your foundation already set. Whereas as a single parent, you're starting from scratch. So if you're wanting to ever go down that path, don't feel like being on your own is a reason to not do it.
This is a very important point, actually, because what you are implying here is there is nothing wrong in asking for help. And sometimes we get so tired out that we don't see that as a possibility, right?
Yep.
So how would you recognize that as a single parent, it's time to ask for help? And before that, how do you create the supporting network, the supporting system around you to make sure that when you need to ask for help, that support network is there, is established, and can support you.
But I think the biggest thing is when you have your support network, see, a lot of us get too proud. We get too proud. Oh, I'm fine. I can do it. I can do it. I don't need help. It's very common to think like that. I don't need anyone to help me. But if you've got friends or family around that can help you, just maybe do a school pickup or after school activity or anything like that, then use what support you have. Use it. Unfortunately for me, I didn't have anyone I could fall back on when I first became a single parent. That's why for me, running a business on my own that I could choose my hours was a no-brainer. But not everyone has that option. Not, there are people that are in jobs and they've got to work their whole career around now becoming a single parent. So they've got to look at things like after school care or kids club and all these other things. So you do get the people that are just, oh, I can't ask for help. I look like a failure or I look weak. No, you don't, because you've got to remember you're taking on the role of two people. You're now doing your whole life based on what two people were doing previously. So you're not a failure because you need someone to help you, because you're doing the job and living your life to what two people would normally be doing. So it's okay to ask for help. But I think the biggest thing when it does come to help is just having that emotional support, because it does get times when you are mentally exhausted. And that's the biggest thing. You just get to a point where you just want to clock off. I'm just done. I can't do anymore. And it's good to have those friends that you can just catch up with for a coffee or have a nice lunch with and just switch off. And that's a huge thing. We all need that support. And over time, my support network has changed a bit because, like I said, I unfortunately did lose some friends in my breakup because they decided to take his side. They took his version of the story, which blows me away. But so I left with not many friends because I had not long moved to the area that I was, and they were just a small portion of friends that I had already made on my own. And then I was like, what do I do? I've got nothing now. Literally, I don't even have any friends. So that's when I started Mother's Club. And then, so eventually you do meet people, get out there and go to the gym. That's why I started meeting some friends. And when my daughter started school, you start meeting friends that way. And now also, as I also just touched on earlier, it's very common to find Facebook groups for everything these days. And in my area, there's so many different singles pages and mums pages and support pages. And I'm on so many of them. And I've met so many single mum friends that I've kept in contact with. And I'm actually catching up for lunch with one of them today, which is so nice. And that's such a great way to make friends. If you're struggling to find your people, get on these groups, find ways, do some social events, and find people that just get you and understand your situation. And having that emotional support is priceless. And that's what you need on this journey. You need someone just to kind of, even just to have a vent with. Oh, I had a shit day today. And they get it because they're in that same position. So having that emotional support is priority, I'd say, over having someone that can just, I mean, it's great to have someone that can come in and cook and clean and do everything for us. If we've got someone nearby that can do that, great. But it's also just as important, if not more, to have that emotional support.
It's having that sort of self-care idea.
Yes.
That is very important. So
Yes, definitely.
in that sense, what sort of strategies perhaps would you suggest?
For me, I maximize any kid-free time that I have. And not someone that when my daughter's not with me, I'm just going to sit around and be miserable and be bored and be lonely. Because you see that a lot. You see people say that when they don't have their kids with them, they're lonely. Well, that's your time to do stuff for you. Go out and get a massage, go get a manicure, go have some drinks with your friends, catch up for a lunch. Do stuff that makes you feel good. And it's so important to refill our cup because you can't keep running on empty. This is your time when you've got any kid-free time. Do stuff to make you feel good, and it makes a difference on your parenting. When you're feeling good, you're a lot calmer and happier in yourself. Even if it's just stopping somewhere on your own before school pickup and having a coffee on your own just to kind of clock off and switch off for a little bit. There's always ways that you can make it work. Make use of after school care. make use of friends picking up from school, find ways that you can get that little bit of kid-free time. I now, even when my daughter's gone to bed, I'll sit down and put a face mask on. That's for me, that's my little bit of self-care, and I love doing that. And podcast is another thing. Usually when I get up in the morning, I'll put a podcast on. Quite often I'll go to sleep listening to one too. So that's been big for me in my little journey, listening to podcasts that help motivate me and with confidence and everything else. So that's another great tip for self-care, and just doing things that bring you joy, that make you happy. Like there's so many different things out there, but it's relatable to what makes you happy. So find and maximize that time, and you have some kid-free time to just do something to makes you feel good.
I think this is an extremely important point in finding your way to distress. Leanne, would you say that in terms of society, there is enough support and perhaps understanding of the challenges that single parents have to face?
I think that support out there has changed a lot over the years. I think there is the support. Again, it's different in each country depending on where you are, but it's sometimes a matter of looking for it and finding it. Like, because when I first became a single parent, in my opinion, there was nothing, but maybe there was, but I just didn't know where to look. But hopefully nowadays people can just search podcasts and search single parenting, and there's some support there. But and people need to take it up, people need to use it. But there is the support, but also the understanding of the challenges. I don't think people are aware of that. I think people are to some degree, because like when I hear mums all the time saying, oh, I should just be a single mum, my husband doesn't do anything, I may as well just be single. And in my head, I'm thinking to myself, I actually had someone say that to me just yesterday at school pickup, actually. I may as well just be a single mum. My husband does nothing. And in my head, I'm thinking to myself, it's very different. He may not help around the house or he may not do certain things, but being 100% on your own is very different. So maybe you need to reframe that and find the positives in your situation, because being on your own is very different to having a husband that doesn't help around the house, because it's easy to have someone that can maybe just take the bins out, or they can just go help and run up to the shop if you need something for dinner that you're short of, where you can't do that stuff on your own. There's little things that, maybe with the car maintenance or the lawns and stuff like that, that you've now got to do all on your own. And it's so easy to think, oh, my husband doesn't help around the house, so I may as well be a single parent. There's a lot more to it, even just coming home and having somebody to talk to. So there is that misunderstanding of it. It's just, oh, okay, my husband doesn't help around the house, I may as well be a single parent. And a lot of people don't realize how much is involved on every level, mentally, emotionally, financially, physically, how much is involved in being a single parent. And I'm not trying to make it a negative thing, because it is something that we manage because we're in it. We've got to make it work. But that is something that I think a lot of people don't realize. And they just think, oh, it's easy. They get government support, they're fine. It's not like that. Yeah.
And taking that poor understanding a little bit further into the stigma that you mentioned before.
Yep.
How is the situation felt from a single parent perspective? How much stigma do we still have?
Oh, it's still there. It's still there. And that's, I think, one of the challenges. And it's one thing I'm trying to cut through with my podcast. I want to get rid of the shame that comes with that. And it does kind of affect why some people do choose not to become a single parent, because there is that stigma with it. There is a stigma that single mums just rely on government benefits and don't do anything with their life. It is hard, but I've never been that kind of person, so I try not to let it faze me too much. But there is a large portion of single parents out there who do the complete opposite and doing what they can to make it work, because we have to make it work for our kids. That stigma, I don't know, I don't think it's something that will change anytime soon, which is a shame. It's an ugly thing that's always been over my head. And I think that's one thing when I do go out with friends and partners, and that I do sometimes feel like that I get looked down on because I'm a single mum. Like I get looked like I'm lower class because I'm a single mum. And I do feel that sometimes, and that I don't like, especially with how hard I work and how much I don't stop. Like I'm just constantly on the go working and doing what I can to provide a better life for my daughter. There is definitely that perception. It's unfortunately something that we've got to live with, and it's just something that I try not to focus on too much. And it is something that I am hoping that I can change a bit throughout my journey with Life After Plus One.
Well, I mean, one of the bad things about stigma is, particularly in this case, is that it might affect as the first person, the single parent, but might reflect also on the child. The child should be supported, and as the single parent, even more so. But I'm very grateful because I'm fighting the stigma on mental health. So I applaud you for fighting part of the stigma on a slightly different tone.
Yep.
As you said, I mean, it's education, is awareness, is
Awareness. Yep.
understanding really what that particular condition or situation entitles to. But hopefully with your commitment with your podcast and all the resources out there, we can create a more inclusive environment.
Definitely. And like you said at the start of the episode, the numbers are constantly growing. It's not like it's something that's going to become extinct anytime soon. There is more and more single parents these days than ever. And who knows if the fact that social media and the convenience of just moving on to something else has made an impact on that. But the numbers are constantly increasing. So it's something that more and more people should get on board and understanding that people are not wanting to be in relationships that are unhealthy. And that doesn't make them a bad person. They're doing the right things in their life to promote a healthy lifestyle for their child. And they've chosen not to stay in that toxic relationship because they know that toxic relationship is going to have a toxic effect on their child. So for me, I think single parents should be applauded, not shamed.
Sometimes it happens that, the two parents are not necessarily toxic individually, but they might be toxic as a couple. They don't as a couple. So there might be a situation like those where they can be very nice people individually, they just don't work as a couple. So the children will definitely benefit from having been removed from a stressful and full of tension kind of household. So I totally agree with
100%. And the kids see everything. They see how we behave. They see how we react and what we say in situations. And that's what they copy. That's what they do. And if they're in a household that's with a relationship that's extremely toxic, they're just going to copy those behaviors. And it's our job as parents to be a role model for them and show them healthy behaviors and healthy ways to handle situations. And taking myself out of that toxic environment and that toxic relationship was teaching my daughter, well, not in that moment, but in life, how to live life in a positive way and how to handle things in a positive manner. And that environment was not positive, and it wasn't a positive one to bring her up in.
Mm-hmm. I absolutely, totally agree on that. Yeah, there is one aspect that comes with single parenthood. They might find themselves entering a new relationship.
Yep.
What is your experience, either personal or from people that you have coached on this front? And what sort of considerations you would suggest to make to protect their own well-being first and foremost, and then obviously that of their children?
Yeah. Well, first of all, biggest tip I can suggest when going into a new relationship is don't ignore the red flags. It's quite easy to meet someone and you see something that you might think, oh, I don't like that, but I'll just keep seeing them and maybe they'll change or maybe it'll stop. Don't ignore the red flags, because one, you can't change other people. And if you're seeing it early, you're seeing a sign that's not right in the early stages, it's going to continue, if not get worse. Second of all, you don't need to rush. People think because you're older, you need to rush. I personally think when you have kids, it's more of a reason to take it slow. There's no time limit. We don't have to meet a new partner by a specific age. Take your time with it. Have that nice dating stage where you get the butterflies and you go out for nice dinners together and weekends away. So take your time with it, and don't rush into introducing the kids either. There's no rush on that. You don't have to rush into that whole family life again. You may think your ex-partner's a horrible person, so you want to bring a new person into your kid's life as soon as possible. You don't need to do that, because maybe 2-3 months down the track, that's all fallen apart, and then you've now got to cope with it, explaining that to the kid, why that's fallen apart and why they're no longer in their lives and in their life and in your life. So don't rush, don't ignore the red flags, and have fun with it. It is fun. Dating can be fun. So a lot of people get scared. And also another big thing I would definitely recommend is don't go into a relationship when you've still got a lot of hurt from your previous relationship. Look after yourself first. Look after you. Don't go into meeting someone new and then start talking about your ex and what they've done and how they've pissed you off. You're still caught up in that negative bubble from them. You need to let go of that hurt and deal with it, and don't take that baggage into a new relationship with you.
That is absolutely important. In fact, I want to take that one step further and ask you how to navigate the highs and the lows of this kind of emotions. And in particular, if there are specific practices or activities that perhaps you use to release all disempowering emotions. And in line with the forgive and thrive, what do you think about forgiveness, or particular self-forgiveness, to begin thriving again as a single parent?
Well, forgiveness, I think, definitely relates back to what I just kind of touched on, is learning to let it go, learning to heal from the past. And to do that, I think you need to focus on your self-worth first. Start prioritizing you. It's quite easy to be in a relationship and your needs are put on the back burner. You're focused on your family life, you're focused on the house, you're focused on your ex-partner. You need to get your self-worth back and start realizing that you are worthy of a good relationship, you are worthy of a good life, and you are a priority. You definitely need to, so just working on your self-worth. So forgiveness. Now, you don't actually have to go back up to your ex and say, I forgive you. You're an asshole, but I forgive you. It's more so accepting the situation for what it is. It's happened. I don't like it. It's hurt me, but I've got to move on. I've got to let it go. That, for me, that is forgiveness. You can't, and like I said, don't worry about going up and saying sorry. If you want to, go up and say sorry. That's a great sign. It's a very mature sign. But it's more so about forgiving and letting go in yourself, and not, and you're there when you're not fazed by it anymore. You're not triggered by things they do. You're not triggered that they've gone out and got a new partner, or they're going on a holiday or something like that. You're happy for them. Your whole co-parenting arrangement should be now just focused on the kids. And if they're doing fun things with the kids, then you should be happy that the kids are enjoying themselves and they've got a partner that wants to be involved in their life. So it's about being happy with where you at, accepting that the relationship fell apart, but there's something better on the horizon. So that's a big part in forgiving and moving forward, and knowing that everything happens for a reason. I know a lot of people don't like that phrase, but I'm a big fan of it. Everything does happen for a reason. Things don't fall to the shit just because someone's trying to punish us. It does that. It's like a wake-up call. Something's not right in your life. You need to start making changes. So this is all falling apart because there's something better for you out there. So yeah, I'm a big believer in all that.
Absolutely fantastic. Yeah, before concluding, I would like to come back on you. And you mentioned the podcast, you mentioned your business. What are you working on or planning for? Is there anything else, anything in particular that you want to share with us?
I do have a dating guide that I've just released. So I was going to touch base on when you just spoke about dating, actually. So it's 135 page dating ebook. So it's all about dating as a single parent. So I dive into everything that's related, from when you're starting in the initial contact with someone, when you're wanting to go on the first date, maintaining the relationship, navigating when to introduce them to the kids. So it covers every single aspect of the dating world as a single parent. So that's available on my website. I've also got another one that's coming out. It should probably be out by the time this goes live, actually, which is the Single Parent's Guide to Single Parenting. So it's a guide on everything about single parenting. And again, covered things like the stigma, what to do, and just everything about single parenting. So those two ebooks are available on my website, and that's the things that I'm working on at the moment.
Fantastic. So if our listeners would like to know more and learn about you, where they can find you?
You can find all my details on my website, lifeafterplus1.com. I've also got an Instagram page at lifeafterplus1, or you can find my podcast, which comes out twice a week. I have episodes on Life After Plus One.
Wow, I am really jealous now of the 2 episodes per week.
I know. I'm single parenting, and I still work. I work as well as doing the podcast. So I've got to keep going. So, and I do 2 podcasts a week. And I actually went through a phase last week. Well, maybe I should cut it down a little bit, because that is a lot. Doing podcasting is a lot of work behind the scenes that a lot of people don't realize. But yes, I smash out 2 a week.
I can vouch for that. So, very final question.
Yes.
There was one take-home message that you would love everybody to remember from this conversation. What that would be?
Focus on the positive. Single parenting is not a bad thing. It's not something you should be ashamed of. A lot of people put shame with it. They're embarrassed. Don't. Not everything works out in life. Things fall apart. And like I just said, they fall apart for a reason, because there's something better out there for us. Try and find the positive in the situation, whether it's now that you're alone and you've got time to do things your way. You can go on a holiday that you wanted to. You can do things that you wanted to. Focus on finding the positives in the situation. Make new friends that are good for you, or whatever it is. But there are so many positives that you can take from being a single parent, even if it's just having some quiet alone time to yourself when the kids are at the other parent's house. So find those positives, because they are there.
Absolutely. Well, as we conclude this episode, I hope that, like me, you have gained valuable insights into the multifaceted world of single parenting, in their strength, resilience, and determination, as well as about the importance of prioritizing well-being and creating good support systems. And on this last point, I want to leave you with a quote. Well, in fact, it's a very inspiring African proverb that reads, "It takes a village to raise a child." And I hope it serves as a reminder for all single parents out there that you are doing great and there is nothing wrong in asking for help. And if a door shuts, well, another may open somewhere else. But also to invite anyone else to lend a helping hand to support single parents in their journey. Let's create a more compassionate world together. Leanne, thank you so much for accepting our
Very welcome.
Yeah, your story. I really enjoyed this. I wanted to bring this topic on the show for a very long time. So
excellent.
I appreciate it.
It's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure. Thank you. And hope all the listeners enjoyed all.
I'm sure about that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, we would love to know what you think about this topic. Are you a single parent? If so, let us know about your journey. Are there challenges, perhaps, that you are facing right now? If so, I'm sure that you will find this episode very inspiring to reposition you on a more empowered path.
Thank you so much for listening to that lovely episode with myself and Rossanna from Forgive and Thrive. Now, I've added all her details in the show notes below, so if you are interested in hearing more about Rossanna or listening to her show, then I have all the details. Her podcast is Forgive and Thrive. It's also available on YouTube. So thank you all for listening. I hope you got some valuable information out of today's episode. And until next time, I'll be in your ears then. Thank you for joining us on the Life After Plus One podcast. If you loved what you heard today and looking for some further support, then jump onto our website, lifeafterplus1.com. Plus, don't forget to check out our Instagram page for further resources and inspo. You can find all the links in the show notes. And remember, you're not alone on this path. I'm looking forward to seeing you on the next episode. And in the meantime, keep thriving, keep growing, and keep exploring your amazing life after Plus One.